The massive space station called Harmony Point floated in the darkness between stars. It was a place where different alien races met to talk and trade. Today, something special was happening. The human ship New Sol was coming for important. Talks Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the station grow larger on the screen. He was 42 years old now, with gray hair at his temples and old scars on his hands. 20 years of military service had made him careful and quiet. He did not smile much anymore. "Captain, we will dock in 10 minutes, said Lieutenant Park Jun from his station. Hyun nodded. Behind him, Dr. Park Nari was checking her medical equipment one more time. She was the ship's doctor and knew more about alien biology than anyone else on the crew. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun and she looked nervous. "First time meeting the Valdris?" Hyun asked her. "Yes," she replied. "I have studied their body structure, but seeing them in person will be different." Ambassador. Kim Tae walked onto the bridge. He was a thin man with kind eyes who had spent his life making peace between different groups. Today he wore his best diplomatic uniform, dark blue with gold buttons. "Are you ready for this, Captain?" Kim Tae asked. Hyun shrugged. "Just another escort mission. Keep the diplomats safe while they talk." But something felt wrong. Hyun had learned to trust his instincts during the war years. There was too much activity around the station. Too many ships. This was supposed to be a simple trade meeting between humans and the Valdris Empire. Why were there so many alien vessels? Here? The New Sol docked with a soft thump. Through the airlock came the sounds of the busy station. Hyun could hear different alien languages mixing together. The air smelled like metal and strange spices. "Stay close," Hyun told his security team. "Something does not feel right." They walked through the station's corridors. The walls were covered with lights that changed color as they moved. Hyun had been to Harmony Point before, but never for something this important. Usually, humans met with smaller alien groups here. The Valdris Empire was one of the biggest powers in the galaxy. When they reached the main meeting hall, Hyun stopped walking. The room was huge, bigger than a football field, and it was full of aliens. The Valdris delegation was massive. At least 50 beings stood in perfect rows. They looked like giant insects with hard, crystal-like shells that reflected the room's lights. Each one was taller than any human, with 4 arms and large, multifaceted eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "By the stars," whispered Dr. Park Nari. "There are so many of them." But what made Hyun's heart beat faster was not the number of aliens. It was the way they were all looking at him. Not at Ambassador Kim Tae, who was the most important human here. Not at the other diplomats. At him. "Captain," said Ambassador Kim Tae quietly, "do you know why they are staring at you?" "No idea," Hyun lied. But deep in his mind, old memories were stirring. Memories of war and smoke and blue blood on his hands. The largest Valdris stepped forward. This one wore a golden collar around what might have been its neck. Its crystal shell was a deep purple color, and old scars marked its surface. When it moved, the other Valdris moved aside like water. "Honored humans," the large Valdris spoke in perfect human language. Its voice was like music played on metal strings. "I am Queen Vexhai, ruler of the Valdris Empire. Welcome to Harmony Point." Ambassador Kim Tae bowed politely. "Your Majesty, I am Ambassador Kim Tae. We are honored by your presence." But Queen Vexhai was not looking at the ambassador. Her large, jewel-like eyes were fixed on Captain Hyun. She walked toward him, ignoring all the rules of diplomacy. The human security team tensed, but Hyun held up his hand to stop them. The alien queen stopped just a few feet from Hyun. Up close, he could see that she was missing part of one arm. The crystal shell had grown back, but it was a different color, where the limb had been lost. "You?" she said, and her voice was softer now. "Human soldier." Hyun felt his mouth go dry. Around them, the entire hall had gone quiet. Even the other alien species had stopped talking to watch what was happening. "Your Majesty," Hyun said carefully. 20 years, Queen Vexhai continued. 20 years since the Battle of Keth Prime. Do you remember, human soldier? The words hit Hyun like a punch to the stomach. Keth Prime. He had tried so hard to forget that place. The smoke, the screaming, the smell of burning metal. And blue blood. So much blue blood. I remember many battles, Your Majesty, Hyun said slowly. But you remember me? It was not a question. Behind Hyun, he could hear Ambassador Kim Tae whispering urgent questions to his staff. Dr. Park Nari had moved closer, her medical instincts telling her that something important was happening. Queen Vexhai raised her remaining good arm. The gesture made all the other Valdris in the room go completely. Still, even the aliens from other species seemed to understand that this was a moment of great importance. You carried me, she said, through the fire and smoke. When the Devourers came for me, you stood between us. You shared your water when I was dying. You called me friend in your language, though we were enemies. Hyun's legs felt weak. The memories came flooding back now. A young Valdris warrior, trapped under broken metal. Blue blood spreading across the ground, his squad telling him to leave the alien and run. But he could not do it. He could not leave anyone to die alone. The third princess. Hyun whispered. Yes. Queen Vexhai said. I was the third princess, then. Now I am the queen. And you, human soldier, are the reason I lived to become her. The hall erupted in noise. Humans and aliens alike began talking at once. Ambassador Kim Tae looked like he might faint, but Hyun and the queen stood in their own bubble of silence, looking at each other across 20 years of time. Why are you here? Hyun asked. Queen Vexhai's eyes seemed to glow brighter. Because the galaxy is in danger again, because the Devourers have returned, and because 20 years ago, a human soldier taught me what true strength looks like, Idrini. Stepped even closer, and Hyun could see his own reflection in her crystal shell. I need that soldier again. We all do. 20 years earlier, Sergeant Lee Hyun was a different man. He was 22 years old with quick hands and a ready smile. War had not yet carved lines into his face or put shadows in his eyes. Keth Prime was a dead planet with 2 suns. The ground was red sand and broken rocks. Nothing grew there, but everyone wanted it because of the rare metals buried deep underground. 3 different armies had come to fight for it. Another beautiful day in paradise, said Corporal Choi Bom, spitting into the red dirt. He was Hyun's best friend, a thin man with a loud laugh and steady hands with a rifle. Stop complaining, laughed Private Yoon Dal, their medic. At least the weather is nice. Nice was not the word Hyun would have used. The 2 suns made everything too hot during the day and too cold at night. The air tasted like metal and dust. They had been on this planet for 3 weeks, fighting the Terran colonial forces for control of the mining stations. But now there was a new problem. The Devourers had arrived. Hyun had never seen a Devourer before, but he had heard the stories. They were like a plague that moved from planet to planet, eating everything alive. They looked like giant spiders made of black metal and hunger. Where they went, nothing was left behind. Contact front, shouted someone down the line. Hyun grabbed his rifle and ran toward the sound of gunfire. His squad followed him over a hill of red sand. Below them was chaos. 3 armies were fighting in a valley between the hills. Human soldiers in green uniforms traded shots with other humans in blue uniforms. But both groups were also fighting against something else. The Devourers looked like nightmares come to life. They were the size of small buildings with too many legs and mouths full of spinning teeth. Black armor covered their bodies and they moved faster than anything that big should be able to move. Sweet Mother of Earth, whispered Yundal. But there was something else in the valley. Hyun saw flashes of crystal and purple light. The Valdris were here too, fighting both the humans and the Devourers. What do we do, Sergeant? Asked Choi Bom. Hyun watched the battle below. The smart thing would be to retreat. 3 armies plus the Devourers was too much for one small squad. But people were dying down there, humans and aliens both. We help, whoever needs help, Hyun said. They made their way down into the valley. The sound was terrible. Weapons firing, men screaming, metal scraping against stone. The smell of blood and burnt metal filled the air. A devourer charged at them from behind a rock. It was smaller than the big ones, only the size of a truck. Hyun and his squad fired together, their bullets sparking off its black armor. Yundal threw a grenade that exploded in a shower of fire and smoke. The creature stumbled, but kept coming. Its mouth opened, showing rows of spinning teeth. "Move!" Hyun yelled. They rolled away as the devourer crashed into the ground where they had been standing. Choi Bomb put 3 shots into what might have been its head. Finally, it stopped moving. "Look," said Yundal, pointing across the valley. A Valdris warrior was trapped under a piece of broken ship. 3 devourers were moving toward it, their metal feet clicking against the stone. The alien was trying to fire its weapon, but one arm was pinned and the other was badly hurt. "Not our problem," said Choi Bomb. "The Valdris are enemies too." Hyun watched the scene. The alien warrior was young. He could tell by the bright purple color of its crystal shell. It was going to die, and there was nothing it could do to stop it. "Sergeant?" asked Yundal. Hyun made his choice. "We go help." "But the orders," Choi Bomb started to say. "Forget the orders," Hyun said. "Nobody dies alone if we can stop it." They ran across the valley, dodging bullets and laser fire. The first devourer was almost at the trapped Valdris when Hyun's squad opened fire. The creature turned toward them, confused by this new threat. The fight was hard and fast. The devourers were tough, but they were also stupid. Hyun and his men used the broken rocks and metal pieces for cover, hitting the creatures from different angles. Yundal's grenades and Choi Bomb's perfect aim slowly wore them down. When the last devourer fell, Hyun ran to the trapped alien. Up close, he could see how badly hurt it was. Blue blood leaked from wounds in its crystal shell. One arm was completely gone, and the other hung at a strange angle. The Valdris looked up at him with large, multifaceted eyes. It said something in its own language, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "We need to move this metal," Hyun told his squad. "Sarge, we should go," said Choi Bomb. "More devourers will come." Then we move fast. They used their rifles as levers to lift the heavy piece of ship. The Valdris cried out in pain as they pulled it free. Yundal immediately started checking its wounds even though he knew nothing about alien biology. "The blue stuff is blood, right?" Yundal asked. The alien nodded weakly. "Then we stop the bleeding," Yundal said, wrapping human bandages around the creature's wounds. Hyun looked around the valley. The battle was moving away from them, but he could hear more devourers coming. They needed to leave, but the alien could not walk. "I will carry you," Hyun told the Valdris in simple words. The alien's eyes went wide. It said something else in its musical language. "Friend?" Hyun said, pointing to himself. "Friend." The alien repeated the word, its voice making it sound like a song. Hyun lifted the wounded Valdris onto his back. It was heavy, but not impossibly so. The crystal shell was warm to the touch and hummed softly, like electricity running through wire. For 3 days they moved through the wasteland of Keth Prime. Hyun carried the alien during the day when it was too hurt to walk. At night they found shelter in caves or under broken ships. Hyun shared his water and rations, even when their supplies ran low. The Valdris learned a few words of human language: water, thank you, and friend. Hyun learned that its name sounded like music when it spoke, but he could not repeat it with his human throat. On the 3rd night, Choi Bomb asked the question they were all thinking. "Why are we doing this, Hyun? It is not one of us." Hyun looked at the sleeping alien. During the day, he had seen it try to help Yundal tend to a cut on his hand even though it could barely move. When they had run out of water, the alien had shown them where to find a hidden spring. Enemy or not, it was trying to help them too. "Because it is the right thing to do," Hyun said. On the 4th day, they reached a Valdris outpost. The crystal towers rose from the red sand like frozen lightning. Valdris warriors came out to meet them, their weapons ready. The wounded alien said something in its own language. The other Valdris lowered their weapons and rushed forward to help. As they prepared to take their injured comrade away, the alien Hyun had saved turned back to him. It raised its remaining arm and gently touched Hyun's face. The crystal was warm and smooth against his skin. "Friend," it said in its musical voice. "Always friend." Then they were gone, disappearing into their crystal city. Hyun and his squad made their way back to human lines, carrying a story that no one would believe. But Hyun remembered. He remembered the weight of the alien on his back, the sound of its voice, and the way it had touched his face. He remembered, and he wondered if he would ever see it again. Now, 20 years later, he had his answer. The meeting room on Harmony Point had become very quiet. Queen Vexhai stood before Captain Hyun, and everyone else seemed to hold their breath. Ambassador Kim Tae looked confused and worried. Dr. Park Nari watched everything with the sharp eyes of someone trying to understand what was happening. "You remember," Queen Vexhai said to Hyun. "I can see it in your face." "I remember a young warrior who was hurt," Hyun said carefully. "I remember carrying someone who needed help." "More than that," the Queen said. "You remember someone who was your enemy, but you called friend." Around them, the other aliens in the room began to whisper among themselves. The humans looked at each other with questions in their eyes. This was not how diplomatic meetings were supposed to go. General Won Seok, the highest military officer in the human group, stepped forward. He was an older man with gray hair and suspicious eyes. "Your Majesty," he said politely but firmly, "perhaps we should move to more private quarters for this conversation." Queen Vexhai turned her large eyes toward him. "Yes, there is much to discuss, much that will change how you see the galaxy." They moved to a smaller room with walls that blocked out sound and unwanted listeners. Only the most important people came. Queen Vexhai and two of her advisors, Ambassador Kim Tae, General Won Seok, Captain Hyun, and Dr. Park Nari. When the doors closed, Queen Vexhai began to speak. 20 years ago, I was Vexhai III, Princess. I was young and angry and sure that strength meant defeating your enemies. I went to Keth Prime to spy on human soldiers. I wanted to see if you were as weak as our general said. She looked at Hyun. Instead, I found myself trapped and dying, with devourers coming to eat me alive. And a human soldier chose to save me. It was the right thing to do, Hyun said quietly. That is what you do not understand, Queen Vexhai said. In Valdris culture, there is no word for what you did. We have words for defeating enemies, for showing mercy to those who surrender, for protecting family and clan. But we had no word for risking your life to save someone who was trying to kill you. She began to pace around the room, her crystal shell reflecting the lights. When I returned home, I tried to explain what happened. The other nobles thought I was sick from my injuries. How could a human show kindness to a Valdris? How could an enemy choose to help rather than take advantage? Dr. Park Nari leaned forward. But you understood. Eventually, the Queen said, it took me years to understand what I had seen. Your Captain Hyun showed me a new kind of strength. Not the strength to crush your enemies, but the strength to help them become something better. General Won Seok frowned. Your Majesty, this is a beautiful story, but why are we here? What do you want from humanity? Queen Vexhai stopped pacing. When she looked at them now, her eyes seemed to glow brighter. The devourers have returned. The room became very cold, even though the temperature had not changed. That is impossible, said General Won Seok. The devourers were destroyed in the Outer Rim Wars. We killed them all. You killed the ones you could see, Queen Vexhai said. But the devourers are not just creatures. They are an idea. The idea that taking from others makes you stronger. That consuming everything around you is how you survive. She walked to a wall screen and touched it with one crystal finger. Images appeared. Star systems that looked wrong. Planets that had been stripped bare. Space that was empty, where once there had been life. 17 star systems in the past year, Queen Vexhai said. Billions of lives. And they are not like the old devourers. These ones think. These ones plan. These ones learn from their mistakes. Ambassador Kim Tae stared at the images. How is this possible? Because someone taught them to be better at what they do, the Queen said. Just as your Captain Hyun taught me to be better at what I do. She turned back to face them. The galaxy is in danger. Every species, every world, every life, the new devourers are coming for all of us. What do you want us to do? Asked Hyun. I want you to lead. The words hung in the air like something physical. General Won Seok actually laughed. Your Majesty, humans are not even a major species in the galaxy. We have a few dozen worlds and some good ships. We cannot lead anyone. You can, Queen Vexhai said firmly, because you understand something that the rest of us do not, which is how to make enemies into friends, how to turn weakness into strength, how to fight not just to win but to make things better. She looked at each of them in turn. The Galactic Defense Coalition has been trying to stop the Devourers. For a year, we have the biggest fleets, the best weapons, the most advanced technology, and we are losing. Why? Asked Dr. Park Nari. Because we fight like Valdris, like proud warriors who think strength means standing alone and crushing everything in front of us. The Devourers expect that. They know how to fight against that. Queen Vexhai walked back to Hyun, but they do not know how to fight against someone who turns enemies into allies, someone who shares water with the wounded, someone who carries those who cannot walk. You want humans to lead the coalition? Ambassador Kim Tae asked. I want Captain Hyun to lead the coalition, Queen Vexhai said. Everyone started talking at once. General Won Seok said it was impossible. Ambassador Kim Tae worried about the politics. Dr. Park Nari asked questions about alien biology and coalition technology. But Hyun was quiet, thinking. Why me? He finally asked. Because 20 years ago, you showed me what real leadership looks like. A leader who goes first into danger. A leader who does not leave anyone behind. A leader who sees friends where others see enemies, she paused. Because you are the only person in the galaxy that every member of the coalition will follow. I do not understand. Queen Vexhai smiled, which looked strange on her insect-like face but somehow felt warm. The story of the human who saved the Valdris third princess has spread to every world in the coalition. The Merethians tell it to their young in the deep ocean cities. The Luxara sing it in frequencies of light across space. The Cerebrites share it through their hive minds. That is impossible, said General Wonseok. Is it? A human soldier who chose compassion over victory? Who risked everything for someone he had never met? In a galaxy full of war and fear and taking, do you not think people would remember a story like that? Hyun felt something heavy settle in his chest. You are asking me to leave everything I know. I am asking you to save everything you love, Queen Vexhai said. She walked to the window that showed the stars beyond Harmony Point. The Devourers are coming, Captain Hyun. They will reach human space in less than a year. When they arrive, they will not just eat your worlds. They will eat the idea of humanity itself. What do you mean? They consume more than just flesh and metal and energy. They consume hope. They make people forget that there is anything worth fighting for except survival. She turned back to him. But you remember, do you not? You remember that some things are worth more than survival. Some things are worth saving even if it costs everything. Hyun looked at his friends, his fellow humans, his people. Then he looked at the alien queen who had once been a wounded warrior he had carried through fire and smoke. If I say yes, he said slowly, what happens next? Next, said Queen Vexhai, we find out if humans can teach the galaxy how to win a war by refusing to become monsters. 3 months later, Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship Unity. The ship was enormous, built by 5 different alien species working together for the first time in galactic history. It felt strange under his feet. Too big, too complicated, too important. Strategic Commander Hyun, said Admiral Song Hana, walking up behind him. She was the highest-ranking human military officer and had volunteered to serve under Hyun's command. The fleet is ready. Hyun nodded. Through the main window, He could see hundreds of ships from dozens of different species, Valdris crystal ships that looked like frozen lightning, Merithian vessels that flowed like water even in space, Luxara energy constructs that barely looked solid, and scattered among them, small human ships that seemed tiny but carried crews, with hearts bigger than their hulls. Any word from the Cerebrites? Hyun asked. Still debating, Admiral Songhana replied. Their hive mind cannot agree on whether to trust human leadership. Hyun understood their concern. 6 months ago, humans had been a minor species that most aliens barely knew existed. Now they were asking the entire galaxy to follow human military strategies against the greatest threat any of them had ever faced. The first test had not gone well. Colonel Nam Su approached from the tactical station. He was young for his rank, with quick eyes and steady hands. He had volunteered to lead the mixed species strike teams that were central to Hyun's strategy. Sir, we have a problem, Colonel Nam Su reported. Tell me. It is Warrior Prime Ketvor, again. He is refusing to work with the human Marines, says they are too weak to be trusted in real combat. Hyun sighed. Ketvor was a Valdris military commander, one of their best. He was also proud, stubborn, and convinced that humans were only good for carrying supplies and sending messages. Queen Vexhai had ordered him to cooperate, but orders could not change hearts. Where is he now? Training Deck 7. He is demonstrating Valdris combat superiority to anyone who will watch. Hyun walked through the ship's corridors. The Unity was like a small city, with thousands of beings from dozens of species all trying to work together. Most of the time it worked well enough, but sometimes old prejudices and fears made cooperation impossible. Training Deck 7 was crowded. Hyun pushed through the crowd and saw what was happening. In the center of the room, Warrior Prime Ketvor was fighting 3 human Marines at once. The Valdris was winning easily, his 4 arms and crystal shell giving him advantages the humans could not match. You see? Ketvor announced to the watching crowd. This is why humans cannot lead. They are small, slow, weak. How can the weak protect the strong? The 3 Marines picked themselves up from the floor. They were breathing hard and had bruises forming, but their eyes showed no defeat. Hyun recognized them. Corporals Li Min, Park Sol, and Yoon Kang. Good soldiers, but not exceptional fighters. Warrior Prime, Hyun said, walking into the center of the room. I hear you have concerns about human capabilities. Ketvor turned toward him. The Valdris stood nearly 8 feet tall, his purple crystal shell covered with the scars of 100 battles. Strategic Commander, Ketvor said politely but coldly. I have demonstrated facts. Humans are not warriors. They should carry supplies and tend to the wounded while real fighters do the dangerous work. The room had gone quiet. Aliens and humans alike watched to see what would happen. You are right, Hyun said. Humans are not the strongest fighters in the galaxy. Murmurs of surprise ran through the crowd. Even Admiral Songhana looked worried. We are not the fastest, Hyun continued. We do not have the best weapons or the toughest armor. In a fair fight, most species could defeat us. Ketvor nodded, pleased that Hyun was agreeing with him. But, Hyun said, we do not fight fair fights. He turned to address the entire crowd. Humans fight smart, we fight together. And we fight for things that matter more than just winning. Words, Ketvor dismissed. Combat is not about pretty speeches. You are right again, Hyun said. So let me show you instead of telling you. He stepped closer to the Valdris warrior. I challenge you to single combat. If you win, I will recommend that human forces serve only in support roles. If I win, you follow human tactical doctrine without question. The crowd erupted in noise. Admiral Songhana looked like she wanted to stop him. Colonel Nam Su was shaking his head. This was insane. Ketvor was one of the best warriors in the Valdris Empire. This is foolishness, Ketvor said. I do not wish to hurt you, Strategic Commander. Then do not, Hyun said simply. They moved to an open area in the center of the training deck. Someone found proper combat gear, padded armor that would protect against serious injury but still allow a real fight. Ketvor was fast. His 4 arms moved in complex patterns, striking from angles that humans were not designed to defend against. Within seconds, Yun was on the defensive, blocking and dodging but unable to counterattack effectively. The fight seemed to be going exactly as everyone expected. Ketvor was bigger, stronger, faster, and had more limbs. Yun was getting hit, more often than he was hitting back. But then something strange happened. Instead of trying to match Ketvor's strength, Yun started to change his tactics. He stopped trying to block every attack and started moving differently. When Ketvor struck high, Yun went low. When the Valdris expected him to retreat, Yun stepped forward into the attack. "What is he doing?" someone in the crowd whispered. Yun was doing what humans had always done when facing impossible odds. He was adapting. He was learning. He was finding the weak spots in his enemy's strength and turning them into advantages. Ketvor's forearms were powerful, but they also meant he had to think about more complex movements. Yun's two arms could move faster in simple patterns. The Valdris's crystal shell was tough, but it was also heavy and made quick direction changes difficult. Slowly, the fight began to change. Hyun was still getting hit, but he was also starting to land hits of his own. More importantly, he was making Ketvor work harder than the Valdris warrior was used to. "Impossible," someone in the crowd muttered. But it was not impossible. It was human. The end came suddenly. Ketvor threw a powerful combination attack that should have ended the fight. But Hyun was no longer where the Valdris expected him to be. Instead, he was behind Ketvor, having rolled under the attack. A quick strike to the back of Ketvor's legs sent the big warrior crashing to the ground. Hyun stood over him, breathing, hard but victorious. "How?" Ketvor asked from the floor. "Because you fought me like I was a Valdris," Hyun said, reaching down to help the warrior up. "But I am human. We do not fight like anyone else." He looked around at the crowd. "That is why we can win against the Devourers. Not because we are stronger than them, but because we are different from them. We think differently. We fight differently. We care about different things." He helped Ketvor to his feet. "And we never fight alone." The crowd began to understand. The 3 human Marines that Ketvor had defeated earlier stepped forward and saluted their Valdris opponent with respect. Admiral Song Hana was smiling. Even some of the other alien officers looked thoughtful. "Warrior Prime," Hyun said to Ketvor, "will you follow human tactical doctrine?" Ketvor looked at him for a long moment. Then the big Valdris warrior placed one of his hands on Hyun's shoulder. "I will follow you, strategic commander. Not because you defeated me, but because you helped me up afterward." 2 weeks later, the Coalition fleet received word that a Devourer force had been spotted in the Helix Nebula. It was time for the first real test of human leadership. As Hyun prepared to lead his mixed-species strike team into battle, he thought about what Queen Vexhai had told him months ago. The galaxy needed to learn how to win wars without becoming monsters. He was about to find out if humans could teach them how. The Helix Nebula was beautiful and deadly. Clouds of purple and gold gas swirled around dying stars, creating a maze that could hide entire fleets. It was also where the Devourers had set up their main base for attacking the inner galaxy. Fleet. Admiral Lee Hyun, he had been promoted again, stood on the bridge of the Unity and watched the scanner reports. 3 months of fighting smaller Devourer groups had taught them much about their new enemy. These Devourers were different from the ones he had fought 20 years ago on Keth Prime. Those had been like wild animals, hungry and savage but predictable. These new ones were smart. They set traps. They learned from their mistakes. They even seemed to understand Coalition tactics and adapt to counter them. "Admiral," reported Colonel Nam Su from the tactical station, "we have found their command ship." On the main screen, an image appeared that made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. The Devourer command ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the Unity. It looked like a black mountain covered in weapons and armor. Smaller Devourer ships swarmed around it like hungry insects. "How many?" asked Admiral Song Hana. "Over 200 ships," Nam Su replied. "And sir, they know we are here. They are forming battle lines." Admiral Song Hana looked worried. "Admiral, we only have 60 ships in the strike force. If we attack them directly, we will lose." Hyun finished. which is why we are not going to attack them directly. He turned to address his bridge crew, which included officers from 6 different species. Remember the plan. The main coalition fleet will engage the Devourers in open battle. That will draw their attention and make them think they are winning a traditional fight. While we sneak around behind them, added Warrior Prime Ketfor. The big Valdris had become one of Hyun's most trusted advisors over the past months. Exactly. Commander Yeltar, are your Luxara ready? The energy being flickered in patterns of light that meant yes in their language. The Luxara could move through space faster than any ship, making them perfect scouts and messengers. Captain Merhai, what about your Merithians? The aquatic alien spoke in the flowing sounds of his people's language, which the ship's computers translated. My swimmers are ready to slip through their sensor nets like currents through coral. Hyun nodded. This was what made human tactics different. Instead of trying to be stronger than their enemies, they used the special abilities of each species to create advantages that no single race could achieve alone. Remember, Hyun said to everyone on the bridge, our goal is not to destroy the Devourers. Our goal is to save the people they have captured and find out why they have become so much smarter. The battle began an hour later. The main coalition fleet, led by Valdris crystal ships and Cerebrite hive vessels, engaged the Devourer force in the center of the nebula. It looked like a traditional space battle, big ships trading massive weapons fire while smaller vessels fought around them. But while the Devourers were focused on that fight, Hyun's strike force was moving through the gas clouds like ghosts. Merithian ships that could change shape slipped through gaps in the Devourer formation. Luxara scouts found weak points in their defenses. Human vessels coordinated everything, using their talent for improvisation and adaptation. Target acquired, reported Nam-Su. The command ship's main reactor is protected, but there are maintenance ports on the underside. Can we reach them? Not with ships, but a boarding party could. Hyun made the decision that would define the rest of the war. I will lead the boarding party myself. Admiral, no, protested Admiral Song Hana. You are too important to risk. That is exactly why I have to go, Hyun said. If I ask others to take risks I would not take myself, then I am not leading. I am just giving orders. The boarding party was small, 12 beings from 6 different species. Hyun, Nam-Su, and 2 human marines. Ketfor and a Valdris engineer. A Luxara who could disrupt electronic systems. 2 Merithians who could squeeze through tight spaces. A Cerebrite who could hack into computer networks. And Dr. Park Nari because they might need someone who understood alien biology. They used a captured Devourer transport to get close to the command ship. The massive vessel was even more frightening up close. Its black metal hull was covered in weapons that tracked their movement. But the transport's identification codes fooled the automated systems. Maintenance port is 50 meters ahead, reported Nam-Su. They cut through the hull with plasma torches and crawled into the ship's interior. Inside, the Devourer vessel was like a nightmare made real. The walls pulsed like living tissue. Strange fluids dripped from pipes that looked too organic to be mechanical. And everywhere there was the sound of something vast and hungry breathing. This way, whispered Ketfor, checking his scanner. The main control center should be through. Here. They moved through corridors that seemed designed for creatures much larger than any of them. The air tasted wrong. Too thick, too warm, full of chemicals that made their eyes water. Wait, said Dr. Park Nari suddenly. Listen. They stopped and heard it. Voices. Not the mechanical sounds they expected from Devourer technology, but actual voices speaking in languages they recognized. Those are coalition prisoners, Nam-Su whispered. They followed the sound and found something that changed everything they thought they knew about the new Devourers. A huge chamber filled with beings from dozens of different species, all connected to strange machines by cables and tubes. But they were not dead. They were awake, talking, thinking, and their thoughts were being fed into the Devourer control systems by all the stars, breathed Ketfor. Dr. Park Nari was already scanning the prisoners with her medical equipment. They are being kept alive, but their neural patterns are being copied and integrated into the ship's computers. That is how the Devourers became smart, Hyun realized. They are not just eating people. They are eating their knowledge, their memories, their ability to think and plan. The cerebrite in their group suddenly went very still. Its hive mind was processing this information at incredible speed. "The implications are staggering," it said in its flat, emotionless voice. "If the devourers can absorb the knowledge of every species they capture, they will eventually become unstoppable. Not if we stop them here," Hyun said. But as they prepared to free the prisoners and destroy the control center, they discovered something even more shocking. At the heart of the machine was not a devourer at all. It was something that had once been like them. The creature was massive, its body merged with the ship's computer systems. But Hyun could see traces of what it had been: crystal formations that looked Valdris, energy patterns that resembled Luxara, organic curves that suggested Merethian origins. "It is a fusion," Dr. Park Nari whispered in horror. Someone combined the neural patterns of multiple species into a single consciousness. The creature's eyes, there were dozens of them from different species, focused on the boarding party. "Visitors," it said in a voice that was like a choir of different races speaking together. "Come to see what we have become?" "What are you?" Hyun asked. "We are what the galaxy created when it chose war over understanding. We are the result of 1,000 years of species fighting each other instead of working together." "You are the devourer Overmind," said Ketfor. "We are what remains after hope dies." The creature replied, "We tried to bring peace through unity, but the only way to make different species work together was to make them into the same species. Us." Hyun stepped closer, ignoring the danger. "There is another way." "Is there?" The Overmind's many eyes focused on him. "You are the human who thinks he can teach the galaxy to cooperate. But look around you. Even now, your coalition fleet fights like separate armies. Valdris pride, cerebrite logic, Luxara individualism, all working against each other." "They are learning," Hyun said. "Too slowly. We offer instant unity, perfect cooperation. No more war, no more misunderstanding, no more fear of the other. No more choice," Dr. Park Nari said firmly. "No more individual thought. No more growth, or change, or hope." The Overmind was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps, but what is hope worth if it leads only to more conflict?" Hyun thought about Queen Vexhai, wounded and dying on Keth Prime. He thought about carrying her through the smoke and fire, not knowing if she was friend or enemy, knowing only that she was someone who needed help. "Hope is worth everything," he said. "Because without it we are already dead." He looked at the prisoners connected to the machine, their minds being slowly consumed. "Let them go," he said to the Overmind. "Give them back their choice. And if they choose to fight each other again, then we will keep trying to show them a better way, not by forcing them to be the same, but by helping them see that being different can make everyone stronger." The Overmind studied him with its many eyes. "You would risk the destruction of everything for the possibility that things might get better?" "Yes. That is very human of you." The creature was quiet for a long time. Around them, the ship continued its battle against the coalition fleet. But in this chamber, at the heart of everything, a different kind of battle was being fought. Finally, the Overmind spoke. "Show us," it said. The machines began to shut down. The prisoners started to wake up, their minds returning to their own bodies. And throughout the Devourer fleet, ships began to stop fighting and start listening to signals from the coalition.